Hello and welcome back to the Faith and Culture Show. I'm Catherine Camp, your hostess for the show. This is where we dig deeply into all sorts of topics in our culture, and we do this to educate ourselves in order to have conversations that count, conversations with an eternal perspective. Today I have a new guest, Dr. Matthew Anthony Harper. He's also a reverend. On top of everything else, all of his qualifications, he's pretty amazing. What we're going to talk about today is Israel and the people of Israel versus the nation state of Israel. Since 2011, Dr. Harper has been the principal White House and U.S. State Department correspondent, exposing and reporting on anti-Semitism and international Israel and Middle East issues. Dr. Harper was introduced to Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu May 8th of 2017 in the Knesset because of his White House questions exposing the UN anti-Semitic agency known as UNRWA, or it is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and they work for pretty much Palestine. Because of his exposing, President Trump defunded UNRWA, and this was because of Dr. Harper's questions and an ensuing investigation he has asked his Senator James Risch to initiate into the funding of this organization that is anti-Semitic. Reverend Dr. Matthew Anthony Harper is an Air Force veteran and an ordained minister and chaplain. Dr. Harper holds a PhD in psychology from California Coast University, a Master's of Education in General Guidance and Counseling from the College of Idaho, and a BA degree in Liberal Studies from the University of New York, Excelsior University. His second BA degree is in Communication, Journalism and Media Studies emphasis, as well as a music minor from Boise State University. And in addition to all of his other accomplishments, he is listed in the second edition of 1999-2000 issue of Who's Who in Medicine and Healthcare. So I'm honored to bring on to the Faith and Culture Show, Dr. Matthew Anthony Harper. Welcome to the show, Dr. Harper. I'm very excited to get into our conversation here.
It's great to join you, Dr. Camp.
Thank you so much. What an interesting career path you have. It sounds to me like you've always been interested in asking questions, especially with your PhD in psychology and studies like that, because we do have to ask questions in order to figure out what's going on. Can you just tell us a little bit that I didn't explain about the background of what has guided you to do what you do today?
Well, Dr. Camp, it's a special calling, I believe, from God to do what I do at the White House. I had no desire to be a news reporter. I'm a musician, first of all. So I've had many years of performing experiences, started out in opera theater, music theater. And so I would say all that performing experiences, including acting, has really helped me, I would say, be able to ask questions on the world stage, interact with people. And I see, acting experience so helpful, actually better than public speaking, debate courses, because the acting experience really helps people learn how to move around on the stage. And we've heard the phrase from Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and we are players. And I can't think of a better stage to be on than the White House, at the White House, in the James Brady press room, asking questions that the world will hear.
That is, that is kind of like, when you made it there, that's, to me, as a journalist, it would be, I've made it. Now it's what I do with it. And I think that goes with with any career where we have this threshold of, okay, this is what I aimed for. Now what do I do with it? And it sounds like you've been doing really phenomenal work, especially standing for God's people. What got you into actually focusing on anti-Semitism?
Well, that is a special calling as well. There was another reporter that I knew from Idaho. I'm from the great state of Idaho. By the way, President Lincoln helped establish the Idaho Territory. So I'm very thankful to be from this area. But this reporter would send me the magazine, a magazine about Israel. It's called Israel, My Glory. And I became interested in Israel issues through that magazine. There was the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva, that was promoted in the magazine. And being a musician, a professional singer, and I sing a lot with, accompaniment soundtracks and all that. So I had to purchase the Israeli national anthem and start practicing it. And as I would practice the Hebrew words of the Israeli national anthem over and over again, several hundred times, I practiced this, and it became more real to me. Israel became more real. I had a deeper understanding, I think, spiritually, because of practicing this Israeli national anthem and studying the history of it.
Well, that will do it. And as a Bible student, a scholar, all of us, I believe everyone's a theologian. Some people just don't realize that they are. Even those who don't believe in God and they're atheists, they're still theologians in the way that they have an opinion about God. They have a theological opinion, and that's that he doesn't exist. But that doesn't really go very far if we start questioning where they came to that conclusion. Anyhow, we will find in Scripture right away, and I think it's right in we talked about this earlier. Obviously, it's in the Old Testament, but we see right away that God says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And so we know there's something very special about the nation of Israel, even though that they misbehaved. We know that many of them went out in the diaspora because of the sins of Israel. He never gave up on the remnant. In fact, it tells us always that there was a remnant, and he would save that remnant.
Oh, so true. This is a special, reference to not Psalms, but Genesis 12:3 about the blessings and the cursing for those that bless Abraham and his seed, and the seed represents Israel. But there's also a warning in the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 2, stating, for God enters into judgment in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the nations that scatter his people and divide up his land. So there is a curse for those that scatter his people and divide up his land, with this two-state solution that has been talked a lot about. The Bible.
We lost your voice. Dr. Harper, we lost your voice. I can't hear you. Somehow we lost your voice.
I'm back. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. You, where we lost you, you started to talk about this two-state solution. I think this is so important for people to understand, because we are hearing a lot about anti-Semitism and Palestine and Palestinians. And please walk us through this. So I don't want to miss anything. Please don't feel like you repeated yourself, because that's where we lost you.
Okay, well, the problem was an incoming call, somehow a conflict technically. But anyway, the history of Palestine, people need to know. This is people's misunderstanding is fueling all this hatred of Israel. Now, the key issue historically, and people can look this up on the internet, that it was the Greek historian Herodotus about 500 BC that promoted this really false narrative of there being a Palestine, and updated with the Roman, the emperor Hadrian as well in about 200 AD, that he referred to the area as Syria Palestine. But this word Palestine is a derivative of Philistine. So often by evangelical Christians that this view, and this is a false narrative, as I said, that's been promoted for quite a long time. So there used to be a magazine called the Palestine Post, but it got renamed the Jerusalem Post. There has been very significant changes since Israel became a nation, but people need to know that there is no Palestine. This is a false narrative. There is, and I've contacted the White House about this several times, and I've asked the question of the Biden administration: if there is no Palestinian language, no identity with especially a Palestine identity, then what is the justification for a Palestinian state? Now that is a key issue as far as identifying a a nation or whatever. If there was a Palestine, there should be a unique Palestinian language, and there isn't. It's all
You're right.
Arabic.
I don't think very, very, very few people know that, and they're not speaking up. I have heard this before, but it's almost like it's a secret. Why do the people in Palestine think that there's a Palestine?
Well, and as I said, there is no Palestine. So these people that refer to themselves as Palestinians, they're deceived. They don't understand history. They can't prove that they have a unique language. It's all Arabic. So that is the key issue. I think a lot of people prefer the lie than the truth. People have a hate for Israel. It is increasing. Most recently, we had an attack in Boulder, Colorado, with a person yelling out "Free Palestine." So he, from news reports, was using a homemade flamethrower and throwing incendiary devices into a crowd, yelling this "Free Palestine." And then, of course, we had the also a fairly recent experience in Washington, D.C., with some Jewish people that were attending a Jewish event, and they got killed, shot in the back by someone yelling "Free Palestine."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is it. I don't understand the mass confusion. If this is not even, if there's really not a place, what I know this goes way back to Herodotus, like you said, but why do you think in modern times that this has not been clarified?
Well, I would say that some of the lies, with President Truman, that as far as the establishment of Israel, when this happened, Israel is a nation, not a state. I think that needs to be cleared up for a lot of people. Israel has a right to all of their land, as you were mentioning. You're quoting from Genesis 12:3. There are blessings for the bless the seed of Abraham, and that is Israel. So this is a very ancient problem, and people need to know the history. People can look that up about Herodotus, about Hadrian, and the word Palestine.
Yeah, that's okay. So why do you think that this? I know the students over here are, though they will, it seems like they will protest for anything these days that goes against any conservative or Christian values. They're just ready to, they're chomping at the bit to throw, fire and to do violence, destruction. I know that they're getting paid on the backside of it, but what do you think we should do about this? And I feel like I know that the current administration, which is it's 2025, so it's President Trump and his administration, they're trying to stop this at the colleges by defunding the colleges that allow this. Do you agree with that, or do you think there are other ways?
I do agree that the colleges need to be, disciplined with this matter and defunded if they are going to allow this terrorism to exist on the college campuses. But we also have another problem with the nation of Qatar. Qatar gave cover to Hamas, supports Hamas, supports a lot of anti-Semitic actions with funding universities. So also, it is important, besides defunding the colleges for the expression of this anti-Semitism, this terrorism, but also holding them accountable about where they receive money from. It's a serious problem for universities to receive money from Jew-hating nations like Qatar or Saudi Arabia that continue to fund that anti-Semitic terrorist organization, that UN organization, UNRWA. A lot of people may have heard in the news, and not too long ago, about UNRWA's ties to Hamas, that Hamas had infiltrated UNRWA, and they participated in October 7th. So this is a very serious issue. The universities do need to be held accountable and punished financially to really hit them in the pocketbook in this matter, and even deporting the foreign students that are all that are supporting this.
Yeah, I agree. Now, who is, and what are you saying? UNRWA? I don't think I've heard that yet. UNRWA?
It's been a lot of the news is pronounced UNRWA, United Nations Relief Works Agency, but this was a so-called humanitarian organization, a UN organization that started when Israel became a nation in 1948. But it quickly became a propaganda organization inciting children to hate the Jews in the textbooks, glorifying terrorists and saying that Israel is the occupier. As long as people believe the lie that Israel is the occupier, this anti-Semitism, this Jew hatred will be expressed.
So that you say they're teaching this in the school systems over there?
In the school system. And we're even, I think, getting that in the universities as well. Here in America, being taught that Israel is the occupier, the big lie. Our education system is really more a propaganda system. And children really aren't learning the truth in so many ways. They don't understand. World history. There's so many lies that are being influenced by foreign money. I met with a key leader in the Knesset in Israel, close to the prime minister, and he was talking about how his belief clearly that there is foreign government intrusion.
That's happening here too. And do you believe that it's all the same people behind making this chaos? Or is it just different facets of people or groups?
Well, it is a personal belief, and I would agree with this Knesset member that it is foreign government intrusion, foreign money, clearly from Qatar, but Saudi Arabia is also funding this UN agency, UNRWA, and countries in Europe as well. And so many of the United Nations have been supporting this, and this has to stop. I'm curious about if President Trump is going to make a special appeal at the UN, calling for all the nations stop their funding of this Jew-hating UN organization, UNRWA, or any other UN organization. We have so much of an expression of anti-Semitism with South Africa, with the International Criminal Court. and issuing an arrest warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu. This is very troubling about the rise of anti-Semitism, maybe a clear sign of the last days.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking. And when we read the book of Revelation or the book of Daniel, and we read about the last days, and we begin to see it coming together right before our eyes, I think far too many Christians read it almost like a comic book, and it's not reality. And I think that's really dangerous, because we are seeing all of this, these fabrics coming together and beginning to overlap into what's happening in our world. And what would you suggest for people to be aware of, and maybe how can they speak up in their own communities, like you did?
Mm-hmm. People can contact their congressman. That is so key to make their concerns known, and the congressman to bring this issue up in the Congress. Or people can easily contact the White House, whitehouse.gov. There's a contact form that people can fill out with their concerns or their complaints. So I don't think enough people are taking advantage of what we have with that portal at the White House, that people can easily contact President Trump, send messages to his office. And I want to mention also, the backdrop we were talking about anti-Semitism, that Knesset members, his name is Simcha Rothman, or Simcha Rothman in English, I guess you'd pronounce it. But I have an interview with him a couple of times, so people can look that up easily on our YouTube channel. I encourage people to see that, because we have a lot of reports. Israel leader interviews, and our YouTube channel name is Intermountain Christian News. Please go there, subscribe to that, and I want to encourage people that want to have truth reporting at the White House to support our news, our Christian news there. They can just go to our website, imcnews.org, and click on the donate button to help keep me there at the White House, because that is what is in real jeopardy, Dr. Camp, is my being able to be there at the White House to make a difference, to be there in person. I need to be there in person, engaging with the White House press secretary on these issues, and hopefully that funding will be restored soon. I can return there. But people can get involved, as I mentioned, through the congressman, through the White House contact form. Very important.
It is very important. And right now we have that opportunity as a nation that was built on freedom. And I just recently interviewed William Federer, and the topic was, who's the king in America? And we are the people. We are the government. I think we have forgotten, and we've kind of handed everything over and then walked away. We've handed it over to certain individuals who can be bought, unfortunately. And we need to keep our thumb on that scale and a fire lit under them to do what we elected them to do. And that is to maintain this country as a free country. And we can't have a free country if there are people here being persecuted, whether it's because of their Jewish, and because that's how they were born. They were born as Jews, or if they practice a religion like a Christianity. So yes, it's very important to have people like Dr. Harper here in the White House asking the questions, because it's those important questions that will trigger an understanding of what is going on, and then have something done about it. So yes, I will have your YouTube channel in the notes when we finish up here, so that people can look you up and donate. I'll have your website up there. This is like you say, this is not just a physical battle. Many people see it on the physical level, but this is also a spiritual battle. We do see in the book of Revelation that there will be a lot of persecution. against the people of Israel. Do you want to speak more to that with your theological background?
Yes, I can say before I get into that, I could talk about being bullied at the White House. Spiritually, I'm representing a lot of Jewish people. I'm probably the most outspoken there about this anti-Semitism issue, and it is a real spiritual battle. That explains why I get bullied, being mocked and mistreated there by other news reporters. And by the way, there is a news story by Gateway Pundit about me and others being bullied there. So you can look up my name and Gateway Pundit being bullied. A couple of news stories that they did about that issue. One of them was during the COVID virus time. But I would have to ask you to repeat your question, Dr. Camp.
It's okay. With your theological background, on the spiritual end of this, and yes, anytime we stand up for truth, we are going to get bullied. We will be persecuted. Jesus told us that was going to happen. It's not any fun. And I applaud you for continuing to stand up and just kind of push people aside and keep moving forward. But on the spiritual end of it, there's also another aspect of how we see the end times that we read about in Scripture. We read about it in the book of Daniel or Ezekiel, and of course, everyone knows about the book of Revelation. We also read about it in Matthew. How do you see all of these scriptures overlapping and with what these events are unfolding before our eyes?
Yeah, this is very troubling about what is happening about this. But clearly, I believe there's a lot of evidence that we are in the last days for Israel becoming a nation, being a key sign. But Mike Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel, and he endorsed a movie called Left Behind. So I had interviews with the actor for the lead actor of the movie, Kevin Sorbo. But I think it's important for people to read, actually not to read, but to watch that movie, Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist. Mike Huckabee was with Kevin Sorbo endorsing that movie. And when I was in the theater, Mike Huckabee came on the screen, talking about the significance of this. So I see that. And, the book of Revelation, the scripture is very clear, I believe, about these issues that we're dealing with, the hatred, the rise of the hatred of the Jewish people. So I see from my interactions with Israel leaders, encounters with a lot of Jewish people. I've been to Israel 24 times so far, recently in January of 2025. I stood on the ground, the Nova Music Festival site, where the Hamas horrific, so evil attack, very demonic, and just standing on the ground, I could see that there's no place to hide, and people were massacred. It's almost like I could hear the screams of people being massacred that day. Mm-hmm. I went across the street into a bus stop where some of them hid, and they were massacred there. I saw bullet holes, machine gun holes in the concrete of the bus stop as well. It is so troubling about what is happening. It is a spiritual battle that we are in, and the hatred is directed towards me because I represent a lot of Jewish people. I would say that's why I've been having such a battle there at the White House. But interesting to note that the Biden administration would take my questions on a regular basis at the U.S. State Department. I was called on almost every day, and at the White House, with the White House, I'm not being called on to ask any questions. I don't know why that is. I do know that the press secretary was the assistant press secretary during the first Trump administration. Mm-hmm. And I was being shunned by the previous Trump press team after I exposed the problem with the two-state solution. Now, Michelle Bachmann ran for president. She's a very well-known evangelical Christian outspoken on this issue. Matter of fact, she was trying to warn President Trump not to go along with Jared Kushner on this issue of a two-state solution. There was a map that came out on January 28, 2020, showing the division of Israel. And Michelle Bachmann had said in my interview with her that she felt that's what led to President Trump not being able to be reelected. God is angry about people that support dividing Israel. And a two-state solution should not be talked about in any way or depicted in a map. And I was doing a news story talking about evangelical Christians having a problem with this, about scripture, about the prophet Joel 3:2 that warns against this. And that's when I experiencing being shunned. So I don't know why I'm not able to ask questions being called on, but hopefully things will change in that matter. I do know that the White House has been favoring large platform social influencers of 50 million people, which I don't have. Like I think of Joe Rogan, very popular podcast person, and some other social influencers that have a lot more viewers than I do, and that could be part of the reason why they're wanting to focus on large platform people, influencers. But in light of what I've done to expose UNRWA and my meetings with Prime Minister Netanyahu about this, I would think that they would give attention to some of my questions.
Yes, that's a shame, and I'm not understanding why that's happening, especially with all of the anti-Semitic turmoil happening here, which I also find very difficult to understand. I remember growing up hearing about anti-Semitic problems, not allowing Jews to be members of certain country clubs and some things like that. But that kind of all, the playing field started to level out, and I'm just surprised that there's so much. And I know that something is fueling it, and it's probably, like you said, lies that the students are being fed, and it's angering them. But you talked about social media influencers as well. And unfortunately, I've been hearing some talk about the dark side of the nation of Israel, and I mean the political side of things, and how they have done nefarious dark deeds and caused other countries, including the United States, to suffer. And so what can you speak to that? I have my opinion. I know that every country has some bad actors, but do you know anything about that? Can you speak into that?
You mean as far as some social influencers that are portraying Israel in a bad light, or?
Well, they are, but not that part. Just, is there really, is there a bad side, or is there a dark side to Israel that is looking for world control, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I have heard form of anti-Semitism portraying Israel as like controlling the world, blaming Israel that they're in control of a lot of things. This is kind of the base of anti-Semitism, but that is, to me, is so illogical. I mean, there are only, a little over 10 million Jews in the world. Jews don't have the practice of, trying to recruit members to their religion. It's a lot different than in Christianity. In Christianity, we're called to share the gospel, reaching out. But I've talked to many Orthodox Jews. They say that's not acceptable to try to proselytize. They use the word proselytize so often. They're not into that. They believe that people that are called to the Jewish faith will just arrive at that, without any intervention in that matter. But so often Israel and Jewish people are portrayed in an evil light. And this is happening, as we talked about, at the university level, in our school systems. And President Trump is doing a lot of good, I think, in combating anti-Semitism, holding the universities accountable, condemning anti-Semitism. I pray for President Trump and that he will have wisdom and make the right decisions regarding Israel. It's so important that he have wisdom and be able to bless Israel in every way, because he will be blessed more. America will be blessed more if we pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And there's so much that we can do, but we've got to confront the lies that are happening regarding the misrepresentation of Israel, or the lying about Christians. For some reason, attacks happen a lot on Christians as well. Christians so often support Israel. And I think that's why I have experienced being bullied at the White House, because I am in defense of Israel. I'm exposing the problems. I'm exposing anti-Semitism. And a lot of news reporters are anti-Semitic.
Yes,
and
they are.
Matter of fact, when I talked about the myth of Palestine, there was an article in the Jerusalem Post entitled "Myth of Palestine," and I wrote something myself on the perspective on that issue, dealing with that myth of Palestine. And so when I showed our newspaper to a White House reporter, she became very angry. Looked like she wanted to crucify me, because I was exposing that myth. That is a lie. There is a Palestinian state.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's very confusing for them, and they don't want to hear that. But that is one thing I've heard the mainstream media for years. Since I was a young girl, everything was Israel's fault. Every time there was Israel was, I guess, launching missiles or threatening another country, most likely Gaza, the area of Gaza, they would be the culprits. They would be painted as the culprits, not protecting themselves. Then I started listening to other outlets and from other countries with the shortwave radio, and that wasn't the case at all. It seemed to me more that Israel was protecting itself and its people, but you would never hear that side of it from the mainstream legacy media. And you've been at this a very long time on the professional end. What have you seen over the decades with the mainstream media?
Okay, well, I have been at the White House since 2011. I have seen a lot, but it just continues to remain the same as far as the anti-Semitism of the media, their disrespect of truth. I mean, I had an interview with President Trump's principal deputy press secretary, Hogan Gidley. People can look this up on YouTube. My interview with Hogan Gidley about the topic of fake news. So he had a lot to say and about President Trump's views on the legacy media. So people can look that up. And I encourage people to learn a lot about, what we do at the White House. We have a lot of White House videos, a lot of Israeli videos as well. And it's been a very special experience for me. Very difficult, though, being in the middle of this with challenges on several levels, whether it's with reporters, trying to get the Christian community to understand the importance of having a Christian media presence at the White House on a regular basis. Matter of fact, we need to have a Christian media presence on the front row of the White House press room of these press meetings every day. Right now, we have CNN that's on the front row. It should be a Christian media outlet instead. For, I would say, the Christian media has a much larger audience than CNN. So why not put a member of the Christian media there on the front row? And I'm advocating for that at the White House, and hoping the press secretary will honor that request to have our Christian media outlet, whether it could be, Christian Newspaper Association, being represented, the print media, in addition, the television, we have CBN, we have TBN, large networks, we have Christian radio that has a big influence. And of course, with your program and others, we have Christian podcasts as well.
Mm-hmm. There are hundreds and hundreds of us out there advocating for the same, advocating for Christ and this biblical worldview, because we're not from this. I mean, we don't belong here, but we are living here, and we're supposed to be making a difference in the culture around us. What else would you like us to know about Israel and, basically any misunderstandings that are happening today? I know there are churches who grieve over this because they understand our connection with Israel. But what other insights can you give us? The two-state solution is a very big deal, because it seems like everyone's been fooled, and we need to wake people up to this and maybe speak up in some way. I don't know if there's teachers out there. We need to do history.
A lot of history. We can do so much in this area. It is, people need to be educated in the truth. People need to know Bible history. I'd encourage people to study the Bible more. I enjoyed listening to the Bible, the audio Bible. I've listened to it several hundred times, and because of listening to it, I can see in my mind a history of humanity from the very beginning of creation to the very end of civilization. So that has been so a blessing for me. I encourage people to listen to the audio Bible. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. That really, literally is true. And my faith has increased by listening to God's word. It has a great impact on me. I would say that's what people can do more to understand the history of Israel, about the blessings and the cursings. But people can also, be more proactive. They can get involved with their congressperson. I have a very pro-Israel. I have very pro-Israel Congress people here from the state of Idaho. So I've had an interview with Congressman Russ Fulcher about Israel, or Senator James Risch. Senator James Risch, as you may have mentioned in my introduction, was a key senator, and he's, by the way, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He was the one that I asked to get this investigation going, and he asked the General Accounting Office, GAO, to do an investigation. They sent people over to Israel, and they found out this UN agency was lying to the State Department. And all this evidence helped President Trump defund UNRWA. But I'm so thankful that I got to be there at the first week of the Trump administration, sitting in another news reporter's seat. Even though I was being talked out of sitting there, I'm glad I stayed there. And this miracle happened, be able to expose this, and it went viral in Jerusalem the following day on primetime television in the Hebrew channel. And the Knesset members' names that I had mentioned in my question, Dr. Eliza Levi, Yehuda Glick, and Sharon Haskell, I had mentioned, and their phones were ringing off the hook because of that. And the UN agency UNRWA person from Jerusalem sent me an email. I guess he'd been watching the primetime news and wasn't very happy about me exposing this. So I would say, I just want to encourage people to learn Bible history, talk with their congressman about Israel, make their needs known, to speak up, and people can contact me if they want, through our YouTube channel, our news website, imcnews.org. We can make a difference, and it's so important for the Christian media to be there. You mentioned William Federer, which, by the way, I've met with several times in person. I've had interviews with him as well. But Dinesh D'Souza has been a real outspoken person regarding the lies that are being told in our U.S. society.
And the only cure for that is the truth, is to shine the light of the truth.
Yes.
So it's smart for people to go back in history and study Herodotus, study why, where this Palestine came from, or the calling this area Palestine, what happened. Are there any books that you can suggest so people aren't kind of blindly going about? Not everybody has a lot of time to read several books. It'd be good to if we had one resource that we could look at.
Okay, well, the name of a book doesn't come to my mind specifically, but other than just, people can search. There's some Jewish websites talk about the history of the word Palestine. So
Okay.
The Jerusalem Post, about this issue. That article, Myth of Palestine, can be looked up. People can see that. Then also look up, in Wikipedia, you can look about Herodotus and also Hadrian. But that's where I had learned something through Wikipedia. But there's some Jewish library websites as well. So I would encourage people to look at these Jewish sites, and they can learn more about this history because it's so important. The Philistines were ancient sea people from the Greek area, and those original Philistines, to my knowledge, don't exist anymore. These are Arabic people from a different part, but they act a lot like the Philistines. They act like Philistines in their hate for Israel.
Yeah.
And Hamas and ISIS are so evil, and the barbaric, abusive people. That kind of also reminds me of the Amalekites. It's come up at the White House a couple of times. One reporter was trying to blame the Trump administration for actually try to blame the Prime Minister Netanyahu for, and we hear this so often about genocide, but really, the Amalekites were the enemy of Israel, and God in the story about the Amalekites called Israel to exterminate, to get rid of all of the Amalekites. But there was refusal by King Saul not to do that. And we have this continuing problem of people that hate Israel. And we have to realize that in Gaza, a lot of these, I call them Gazans, not Palestinians, but many of them are supportive of Hamas. They assisted Hamas. They voted for Hamas to be in control there. So I don't see that there are that many innocent Gazans, that they are really co-collaborators to the Hamas attacks.
Wow, there's just so much we don't understand. I know many people do. And this is where talking to others about these situations will shed light on the fact that what's happening is not only wrong, but it reminds me of a lie that's been perpetuated easily. It seems very easy. And this is causing destruction. With this misunderstanding, it reminds me of false flags. Just you build a lie enough to where you get people riled up for really no reason. I mean, it's all based on something fictitious, and they end up hurting other people in the process. And we're playing with fire here, is what's happening, and the way I see it.
Yeah, we are playing with fire, and it is very troubling, about what is going on. And I need people to pray for me, because it is so crucial that we have that Christian media presence, and I might be one of the very few that will actively, be talking about this problem of anti-Semitism there. I know there are others that bring it up, but I have a special relationship with Israel leaders, and I want to encourage people to as I mentioned, watch my Israel leader interviews because, and I got a wonderful message from one that was saying she didn't know of any other news reporter at the White House that was doing more for Israel than what I've been able to do.
It's asking the right questions. Thank you for doing that. But we know that, unless you're there, the questions will not be asked in the right way, and they could be misleading. So if somebody has information for you, say on something going on, are you the type of reporter that can be reached with a news story on Israel, or an uprising here, or questions that maybe you can address in an article form?
Well, I could easily be reached through our news website or contact us. Our email is there. People can email in questions. I'm very approachable. I'd say a lot more than many of the White House reporters.
Okay.
I don't have any assistants to, any secretary or whatever. And so as long as God provides, then I'm able to, to give feedback, and I encourage people to contact me. Having a Twitter page, not Twitter, but now called X, Intermountain Christian News. You can find us there. As I mentioned, good. YouTube and Rumble, also on Truth Social. So making a difference on the social media platforms, hoping that I can have a meeting with Joe Rogan in the near future, or Tucker Carlson. Pray for these important interviews that I need to have. I met with the border czar, Tom Holman, and Dr. Phil at the White House on May 1st, just recently.
Yeah.
So like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was there making a difference and had good meetings with them. And Tom Holman said he wanted to have an interview with me. So I'm trying to get that worked out.
Okay.
And Mike Huckabee expressed an interest to have an interview with me as well.
Okay.
I had an interview with Mike Huckabee about 6 years ago. And he had a lot to say about Israel with me. But I would encourage people to contact me, with the news stories or ideas. And hopefully we'll have a lot more assistance to our news outlet.
Okay. And people can donate on your website.
Yeah, excuse me. People can donate our website, imcnews.org, Intermountain Christian News, and there's a donate button. And hopefully I'll get an assistant, someone a lot younger than me, to be with me at the White House. So I need someone like a Joshua kind of person, very outgoing, very courageous, and a good communicator. So pray for the good people that I need to join me at the White House.
Yes. Okay. Well, we will be praying for that. This is important. I believe too, as you do, these are the last days. And you had mentioned to me before, and I know we're running out of time, that President Trump is working on the Abrahamic Peace Accords, which is leading to peace. And I don't know if that we'll see that in our lifetime, but this is where perhaps the coming Antichrist could come out of that, because that would eventually probably start the formation of the one world government. I know we've already started heading that direction, but
yeah, I wanted to comment about the Abraham Accords. I do see, as you, is that it would be a platform that the Antichrist could rise out of, because it's a false peace. The Antichrist will have a false peace plan, a covenant. It's talked about in Daniel chapter 9 about this covenant that seven. See, the number 7 in this case would be referred to 7 years. It talks about a week, but in the middle of the week that he breaks his covenant with Israel. So this is a false peace agreement with Israel. And that's what I can see out of the Abraham Accords. For Abraham Accords, people need to know that there is this one world religion idea that's being promoted, that we all worship the same God. In Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates, There
Mm-hmm.
is a facility the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, visited in February of 2025, and that is this facility having a synagogue, a mosque,
Mm-hmm.
and a Christian facility, promoting this idea that we all worship the same God. And this is the big lie. This is attributed to this false peace issue. And I know that my God is not a law, that I don't worship the same God as Muslim people do.
Right. No, we don't. And this is, yes, it's a real thing. The facility there has the 3 buildings. It's very aesthetically pleasing. It's beautiful, but that's how the devil works. It's alluring. It looks great, and it makes everything sound, well, we do need peace. We need to get along. Well, those things are true, but how we go about it is the important part, and we need to be strategic. Jesus told us, right? We need to be as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves in these days, and that's why we do this. So I will definitely be praying for you. I hope the audiences will take this to heart, and we are a big part of this as Christians. So we need our voices heard, and people like Dr. Harper bring that to the table, and we need to get him back in there. So thank you, Dr. Harper. Is there any last words you'd like to give us?
Well, thank you for your prayers, and for people to donate to help to keep me there at the White House. If you wanted to see my picture with the Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that you can easily look that up on the internet if you just type in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Anthony Harper picture. It should come up that way, and I can be contacted. I encourage people to contact me, and thank you for your prayers. It's great to join you, Dr. Camp.
Yes, thank you for coming on to the show. I'm glad that we were introduced through a mutual friend, and hopefully we can, if you have time to come back, we can talk about how some people, they see religion as they're just very religious, but their faith is just not there. I think that's really a very important topic needs to get out there.
We had talked about that, Dr. Camp. So in the next program, I talk about my dissertation about religiosity, this kind of a fake religious experience. People are lulled into a belief that somehow that God listens to them more if they they pray a lot, they kneel a lot, or whatever, but their heart has to be right with God. John the disciple is an example we can talk about in this future program about intimacy with Christ, which is really lacking. And people have this outward religious behavior, but it is fake. It is not real. God does not listen to people that don't have their heart right for him, that have not accepted Jesus. So Jesus, I would say, I have to make it clear, Jesus is the only source of peace.
Yes. And that's why it's important to talk to people about what's going on, these world events, because we need to stand alongside the people of Israel, not necessarily those running the government, but the people of Israel are who have God's heart.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you.
Great
Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. Camp. I look forward to joining you again.
Same here.
Shalom.
Shalom,
Peace.
shalom.